to the Hiking and Backpacking with Goose podcast. In this episode, I'll hike to Baskins Creek Falls in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But first, I'd like to take a brief detour and talk about contingency planning when hiking. For those of you that have been listening to this podcast for a while, I'm sure you've seen that I think about this topic a lot. While I haven't yet had an emergency deep in the woods, I have had to deal with the consequences of several natural disasters and have been the victim of violent crime in my life. When you're on your 5th day without electricity, or you're facing down the barrel of a gun, or you're standing outside of what remains of your tornado-damaged house, something changes in you. In my case, those, as well as other life-changing events, made me want to be better prepared so that I can deal with unplanned, life-threatening events and to avoid those bad events entirely if possible. In the case of hiking, there are a few low-probability but serious scenarios that I think hikers, whether day hikers or backpackers, should be prepared for. Getting injured in the woods while hiking, getting lost in the woods, dealing with unexpected severe weather, and potential animal attacks. There may be other scenarios on your concern list. I think that the first step to being prepared is to educate yourself on the topic of concern, and the next step is to get prepared for the potential problem. One easy way to prepare for something is to try to avoid it. For example, getting lost in the woods. If you stay on the trail, then you shouldn't get lost. That's pretty simple, but sometimes it's easier to get lost than you think. What if a trail marker has fallen off a tree and you come to a fork in the trail and you take the wrong fork? That's actually happened to me a few times. In each case, once I started to suspect I was headed the wrong way, I didn't try to bushwhack back through the woods to get to the right trail. That's how people get lost in the woods. Instead, I walked back down the trail until I came to the fork, stopped there, and took a break to evaluate my situation. I pulled out my cell phone and opened a mapping app that I use, Garmin Explorer, to review my current location and the trails in the area to determine my next step. I know, I always harp on bringing a paper map with me, and I actually do that. But that paper map serves as a backup for me in case the battery runs out of power. Or I drop my phone in a stream, which I did once. Or the tree canopy is too thick to connect to a GPS satellite. I also always carry rain gear with me that I can use in case of an unexpected or expected rainstorm. I can also use the rain gear as an emergency second layer of clothing in case the temperature drops unexpectedly. I also carry bear spray with me on most hikes now, due to some bear encounters that I've had over the years. While black bears are not typically aggressive, I did have a scary encounter with a mama bear and her cub in Season 2, Episode 1. While taking a wilderness first aid class can be challenging for most of us due to our work and family schedules, it would be worthwhile should the opportunity arise. A simple way that you could learn the basics of first aid and wilderness survival is to read Boy Scout merit badge books on the topic. They're actually very good at covering the basics of the subject and are very inexpensive. You can easily pick them up at your local Boy Scout Council store. I think that the name of the organization is now officially Scouting BSA or Scouting America or something like that. This is due to their very significant reorganization a few years ago. These books are no replacement for formal training, but I think they're a good start. There are lots of other ways you can be prepared for problems when hiking that I covered on previous episodes, so I won't repeat them here. So, enough about that. On to the hike. Baskins Creek Falls is located off of the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail. This falls, Baskins Creek Falls, is also known as Baskins Falls, so you might see references either way. The photos that I've seen of the falls are very nice. It's not a wide fall, but the 40-foot drop will make for a nice photograph, and this should be a fun, short hike. This falls is one of the lesser-known falls in the park, but getting to the falls involves only a short hike and is located in a popular section of the park, so the trail might be busy. Baskins Creek Falls is for a 40-foot, two-tiered waterfall. This is a 3-mile round-trip hike with an elevation gain of a little under 1,000 feet. The few trail guides I have reviewed for this hike have varying ratings for this hike, with difficulty levels ranging from easy to strenuous. So I actually don't know what to expect. In researching this hike, there appears to be 2 trailheads that lead to the falls at opposite ends of the trail, and both connecting to different parts of the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail. I plan to take the first trailhead that I reach on the road. To get to the trailhead, you'll need to enter the park through Gatlinburg, Tennessee. In Gatlinburg, on US 441, turn onto Airport Road. This road will turn into Cherokee Orchard Road. Eventually, Cherokee Orchard Road turns into a one-way road. Continue on the road until you reach the Roaring Fork Road. Then turn onto the Roaring Fork Road, which is also a one-way road. Continue on that road for 0.2 of a mile, and there will be a small parking pullout at the trailhead. Since this area is a very popular area of the park, I plan to arrive early in the day so I can find a parking place easily. When I start my hike, it's my understanding that I'll have a short uphill hike, then a fairly easy section for about a mile. Then I'll need to rock hop a creek. Hopefully it didn't rain too hard in the area over the last few days. If it did, that crossing might be challenging. Shortly after that, the trail starts to go steeply downhill. At about 1.1 miles, I'll pass a side trail that leads to a cemetery. Then at about 1.3 miles, I should reach a short and steep side trail that leads to the falls. When I reach that point, I should see the falls. Hopefully, it'll be a lot better than my disappointment when I hiked Rainbow Falls, which I covered on Season 2, Episode 9. During this hike, at some point, I should also cross over a creek on one of those Indiana Jones-style log bridges that you see so frequently in the Smokies. Well, that's all for now. I'll catch up with you at the halftime report. It's time for the halftime report on Baskins Creek Trail. Well, as you can hear, I made it to the falls safely, and it's a nice little falls. There are some down trees kind of obscuring part of the view, but it's worth the hike if you're willing to do it, and I'll explain that a little bit later. I started out the day with a big cup of coffee and a sausage biscuit on my ride in. When I arrived, the loop road here was busy. So even though it was in the morning, it was already quite busy, and a lot of the more popular trailheads were filled up. I couldn't find a parking place initially at the trailhead for Baskins Creek Trail. However, there were several more just up the road, very, very close, so I was able to grab one of those. The hike starts out with a brief downhill, and then it goes uphill for, about 1/4 mile or so. And then it's downhill the whole remainder of the way, which is, more than a mile. This trail seems to be well traveled. I've seen about 8 other hikers on the trail so far. I took the side trail when I reached it, and it continued to go downhill. Much of this trail is very rooty, and significant parts of it are really packed clay, which can be quite slick when it's wet, and especially when you're going downhill and it's wet. So I did slip a few times. I'm glad I've got my hiking staffs with me, but just be aware that the trail, to me, looks like maybe when it rains, it's a big gully, and so all that's left are the roots and packed clay. The last part of the trail on the side trail, the descent down to the falls, is very steep, and a short section of that towards the very bottom is, I think, very dangerous. So it's not easy to get down here where I am right now without very, very careful footing. So for somebody that doesn't enjoy that sort of thing, you probably would want to pass on this hike. Well, I've not seen any animals so far. Maybe I'll see something on the return hike. The weather has been fantastic. It's a nice, cool morning, great for hiking. And I guess that's all for now. I'll catch up with you soon on the wrap-up. My return hike went quickly since this was a fairly short hike. However, it was mostly uphill, so it was more work than the hike in to see the falls. The grade was steep in places, but not too bad compared to other trails in the Smokies. I did see about 10 other hikers on the return hike. At the highest elevation, I did get some great views of mountain peaks nearby. While the vegetation was very thick, the mountains towered above the short scrub pine tree tops. I hadn't seen this view on the hike in because I wasn't facing in the right direction, so it was a pleasant surprise on the return hike. Contrary to one of the very few trail reviews that I counted on during my research, there was no bridge on this trail, only a couple of small streams to rock hop over, which were not difficult. Maybe there is a bridge on the hike from the other trailhead, but I'm not sure. There were some downed trees in a couple of areas on the trail today, but they were easy enough to get around. I didn't see any animals on today's hike, but I did see a wild turkey on the drive-in this morning. The total length of today's hike was 3.55 miles, which was a small bit longer than I had anticipated. The total ascent during the hike was 951 feet. The trail is obviously not as well maintained as some of the more popular trails in the park, which is unfortunate. I think if they added some steps in key areas, installed rain-diverting timbers in other key areas to reduce erosion, and did something about the final descent to the falls, this could be a popular hike which would help to reduce trail congestion on other nearby trails. But I have no say about that sort of thing, so it really doesn't matter what I think. Baskins Creek Trail is a short hike with a reasonable elevation gain. Most of the trail is in average condition, but some parts of the trail are in poor condition and can be quite slick even on a dry day. And that very short final descent is challenging and dangerous. Overall, I would rate this as a moderately difficult hike, but once again, beware the final descent to the falls. In general, due to that descent, I would recommend this trail only to those people who hike a lot and could easily handle that sort of thing without getting hurt. Overall, I enjoyed the hike. Please be aware that the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail is closed from November 30th until April 18th each year, so this is not a winter hike. This is a very special episode of the Hiking and Backpacking with Goose podcast. Why, you may ask? Well, it's the 50th episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed hosting this podcast and all the hikes that went with it. We are now in our 5th season, and God willing, there will be many more. I've racked up a lot of miles and a lot of hikes. If you're a new listener, you might want to browse some of the earlier episodes from previous seasons. My favorite episodes so far are Abrams Falls Trail, Season 2, Episode 10, Alum Cave Trail to Mount LeConte, Season 3, Episode 3, Appalachian Trail to Charlie's Bunyan, Season 3, Episode 4, Chimney Tops Trail, Season 4, Episode 1, and Ramsey Cascades Trail, Season 4, Episode 12. You might want to check those ones out. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to it and give it a good rating on the podcast platform that you use. The algorithms look for that, and it helps to expand listenership, which helps me to spread the word. Also, please recommend it to your friends who enjoy hiking and outdoor adventures. Photos and a video taken during today's hike can be found on Instagram, where my name is Goosa Hikin'. That's Gooseahikin. A final thought, as always, enjoying the great outdoors is most certainly enjoyable and fun. But please don't engage in strenuous physical activities that are beyond your capabilities or your physical condition. Make sure you're familiar with the wildlife you could encounter on your journey so you can be prepared. Also, make sure that you wear weather-appropriate clothing, carry an emergency medical kit, water, and a map, and always stay on the trail. And don't forget to go to church this weekend.